So, preparing to do the soldering here. I'm doing this on a table that has fire bricks. I'm in the garage off the classroom here. I have a refractory leather apron on so that if the torch were to turn towards me, which it shouldn't, I have protection from that. I'm wearing glasses for this. With a propane torch, it's not bright enough that I have to worry about putting on a certain shade glasses. With the assembling torch, we will put a shade glass on. But for right now, I have apron on. I have it clamped how I had when I showed you last. It has the flux in between there. I'm setting it down on the tabletop, so I'll be holding it while I'm doing this. I have enough of my acid core solder out here to be able to do it at a distance from it. You don't want to have it up here, you have to have a hand so close to it. But with solder, the idea is that you're getting the material hot enough that the solder melts with touching it. I'm not going to have my flame on my solder as I'm doing it here. So my propane tank, I just lit on it that we keep on there when we put it in the fire cabinet. The nozzle for this has a valve to open and close the propane, and it also has an on and off switch. When it's on, and I click that, you can probably see inside there that there's a little piezo, a little spark, kind of like on a gas grill. It's just a piezo crystal in there that's doing that. One thing I want to be certain is when you're putting this on is that you're not going to cross the threads. So when you start turning it, if it has any kind of tightness at all when you're turning it, except when you get it on, then be cautious and stop and ask me, because if we cross the threads on there, then we run the risk of having propane leak out where it's not supposed to be leaking out. Okay? So now that I have it on there and I have it tight, I open the valve, I turn it on, and now just clicking that piezo is going to turn the propane torch on. And when you let go of it, it turns it off. Okay? There is a feature on here. If I turn it on and hold that down, now I can have it running without me touching it. But really, there's no place in this class that that's going to be necessary. Where I would use that is I was working by myself, and I wanted to have the torch running consistently while I was working on something. I would get this thing clamped tightly to a table that it wouldn't fall over while it was on. I would turn it on, and I'd be able to use the heat from that with what I was working on. Anyhow, I also have a wet paper towel. And make sure you're writing down these things that I'm including here when I'm over the table. These videos are supposed to be for you to take notes with, so that when you come into class, you know which things you need. So if you need to go back and watch some of these videos now to make sure that you have things written down for yourself, that you're going to be competent in doing these, please do. Okay? It's not that I won't help you in class with this, but we will not accomplish what we want to accomplish in class here if we're doing everything on video and then doing it again in class. So I'm really going to limit my demonstrations during class time. Okay? So I'm going to heat this up. You'll see the flux bubble up a little bit, and at some point I'm going to bring this in. So I'm going around the joint here, going both sides of it. And once I see it darken up a little bit, then I'll go and see if my solder goes in. You can see how my solder is melting on contact. Now I'm going to bring the heat in again, because that additional heat's going to have the solder flow into the middle there. And the one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit on this joint as well. And I'll heat it one last time to bring it in. And I'm going to wipe down my joints with that wet paper towel. That's why I have this wet paper towel. So I've gotten it pretty cool just with my wet paper towel here, but you can take it over to the sink now with the pliers on here, with the vice grips on here, and put it underneath the water. One thing about sheet metal is that it's so thin that it heats up very quickly, and likewise it cools very quickly. So I already have it now that I'm wiping this down, and the water is staying on the metal after I wipe it, which means that it's not turning to steam right away. So that means that this is probably cool enough for me to touch. Right? So now I'll take the clamp off. I'll take a look at what I've done here. Okay. Joint looks pretty good. Okay, last thing I can do is I can clean this up and put my name on it. Okay, and I will show you guys how to put your name on this in the end. I want to turn this off. I want to turn this off. So I close the valve and turn off the switch. Take this, put the cap back on, and follow me. I want to show you where all this stuff goes when we return it, because it's your responsibility to return these things. Remember also, before we're touching any of this equipment, we are sanitizing, we are going in and disinfecting our hands, having some, either at the sink using soap and water, warm water, or over here with the tub of the alcohol. So the clamp goes back in here. I solder it in the back of the box with the flux. Return back to the bottom drawer. The square that I used to square it up goes back with the rest of them. This clamp is also in here. Okay. These items go over to the side. The propane tank, the cylinder here, goes into a cabinet that's our fire cabinet. So the reason being that if we have a fire in here, we don't have propane canisters blasting all over the place that the firemen have to kind of get around. And we put the top of this in here in the metal cabinet so that they're separate from one another.